All right, we're sitting here in Washington, D.C. on May 25th, Wednesday. This is Bruce Weniger speaking, and Harris Wofford, the first president of the State University of New York College at Old Westbury, is unable to make it to the reunion on Saturday, and he'd like to say a few words to the assembled group in Planting Fields. Harris, how are you?
Well, I wish, Bruce, I were traveling with you to this reunion. I have so many warm memories and some funny ones and some unfinished arguments, but altogether upbeat about my tale of two colleges. I sometimes wish that I had a combination of Old Westbury, as we had it then, and Bryn, Mawr, which was kind of polar opposite to what we were setting out to do at Old Westbury. But to see some of the pioneers who came in those first 2 years shaping it would be a delight, and I'm just very sad that I have set plans that I just couldn't break when I learned about it. So I hope we have another reunion in not too many years. Some of us may drop by the wayside, so I'd like another reunion while I'm kicking.
Well, I think there have been a number of people who are also unable to come to Planting Fields this Saturday, and I'm sure there will be a demand to do this again, hopefully not too many years. I heard over lunch today that you're working on another book, that's going to compare Old Westbury to Bryn Mawr, and would you care to tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are that you're going to finish that book?
That would be one chapter of stories of 8 decades. The book of Kennedys and Kings subtitle was Making Sense of the 60s, and now that my life is more than 8 decades, I've got some other decades to make sense of. Both the odyssey of our country and my own little personal odyssey, and I'm working hard at it. That one of the chapters that will be most challenging and maybe most fun, or maybe it'll be painful, is A Tale of Two Colleges. Old Westbury, where we tried everything and fought hard, all of us who were involved, to find the right liberal arts education, or education for someone in the late 20th century. At Bryn Mawr, where we had probably as good a taste of traditional academia as you can get. Discipline, devotion to the disciplines, stately, determinedly civil, but part of the women's revolution. So something in between. I don't want to run anything anymore, actually. I want to write and continue taking my grandsons, when they turn 12 or so, around the world in honor of my grandmother taking me around the world. But the journey to Old Westbury was one of the big ones in my life, and from reading the website and the emails, I see it was a journey that meant a lot to, I gathered from reading that, most of the students who were there. So I like to think that in the fire of our arguments and our adventures and the terrible fire of the material things, with the fire soon after Martin Luther King was killed, that there's a lot of light that still points the way, maybe, and still is warm in our memories.
Well, over lunch I realized your memory in a lot of what happened at Old Westbury is much better than my memory. I had forgotten so many things. In your recollections, what are the highlights of your experience at Old Westbury, both the upsides and the downsides? Do you have any comments 40 years later on how those experiences affected your life after Old Westbury?
Sure. An upside was beginning the college opening night with some poems. I can't remember which I read and who read what, but I think probably I already knew that I liked that as an interval in life, and there's been a lot of reading of poems by friends and on beaches and trips. It was a very high opening, and we were in the midst of some arguments even opening night, if you were there and remember that. The down point would be down as the world goes, certainly, when we began the evaluation week after the first year. And we of the staff and administration and the facilitator we brought in to spend a week evaluating the program arrived at the campus, and revolutionary music was going, and a banner was up saying, paranoia is true perception, and my office was occupied, and we had a turbulent time, starting serious negotiations that involved the students, the faculty, the president, the board, and were really it was an up point and a down point, that some of our differences were so great. But now my wife found that extraordinarily painful. I don't know why I'm programmed for a DNA full of optimism. I found it very interesting. I had been leading a seminar on civil disobedience, civil law, including Thoreau and Martin Luther King and Gandhi. And when it ended, the students who had occupied my office left a bottle of wine on top of, I think, Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience. My wife, a year or 2 years later, when I'm getting my dates confused, got a call. Well, the great board chairman at Bryn Mawr College and the search committee for a new president decided they wanted to see if I would be open to their considering me for president. Because they had read an article on a speech I'd given to the Bar Association espousing civil disobedience in proper ways. Imagine that today, somebody being considered because of a speech favoring civil disobedience. But in any case, Mrs. Thatcher, when she called, heard on the other end the Revolutionary Student Committee, governing committee of Old Westbury College. And she said, well, I'm trying to find President Wofford. And they said, well, we're occupying his office right now, but we'll give you his phone number. And when she reached my wife, she said, Mrs. Wofford, our search committee would like to please let us meet with you to see if you would interest us, or we would interest you in being president of Bryn Mawr College. And my wife said, Mrs. Thatcher, if my husband ever takes another job, I hope it's not at any college. Maybe running a country grocery store the way my grandfather did at Marine on the St. Croix. To which Mrs. Thatcher said, Mrs. Wofford, Bryn Mawr is not any college. So that was my wife's introduction of a calmer place, let us say.
Wow.
Not that I was necessarily seeking calm, or at least that I didn't know that I might have been seeking calm, but my wife was.
Well, I think I began today, in getting ready for the reunion, I've been able to uncover about half a dozen Old Westbury graduates